Okay, I think everyone is here. My name is Tara from CPS. Everyone is on mute right now, so if you have any questions, we will do questions at the end, but also throughout, feel free to ask. You can raise your hand or type them in the chat box, and I will let Tim, our presenter, know. So basically with the WEBtips, every time we rotate around to a new presenter with a developer from our company, and today Tim is presenting for us, and he has developed many solutions for our customers. So it should be very exciting and very informative. Tim, you can go ahead.
Great, thank you, Tara. So, I think we're all here. Tara, everyone can see my screen? Should we
Yep.
check that before? You
Yep.
can?
Yep.
Okay. So that's me. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Just as Tara was saying, I've been developing forms and workflows and many other processes for over 5 years now, mostly focusing on forms and workflows, building some site designs and dashboards as well. And then those are just some of my areas I've worked in too. From Composer, which combines form and workflow, to ClickSense, which builds dashboards, and we all know SharePoint. The precursor, which was InfoPath, and then workflow, Nintex workflow. So I'm really excited about today's topic, something I'm very passionate about, something it's an everyday, I look forward to each day, is building new designs and how we can just build the best ones for our end users. So to get started, I just want to introduce something about form design, which I have learned and picked up from another fellow designer named Jessica Enders. But they're just some principles we try to follow throughout each one of our designs. I'm just going to discuss each one and how we can implement them within Composer. So we've all have seen these words before, clear, concise, and clever, and cooperative. But how can we implement these within our form design? How can we make this pay off? So what we mean by clear is that when we're designing components, we want to aim to bond the purpose of the form with the perspective of the requester. So we want to ensure what their mindset is going in and how they come to decisions and determinations that is built and created and designed within our solution. The more predictable the form can be, that's the route we're looking for. So the next one would be concise. Many people can mistakenly believe that a good form is always short. They aim for the fewest possible fields and groups, but that's not necessarily true. We want to gather all of the required fields, the optional ones as well. We want to clear out the essential or the non-essential, and continue with the essential. So just keep things concise, but there's also some tips and tricks we'll see later on how we can reduce the form length. And then also, if we keep moving along here, we have clever. It's probably my favorite one of the bunch. This one really just comes down to reducing the workload of the form user. So this is where we start talking about form intelligence within the electronic forms realm. This can really shine here. Within our forms, we can sequence events, we can build formulas, we can set default values, we can create validations of all sorts and all kinds. All of these things are at a disposal to create just a great end user experience, and that's what we're striving for. A lot of things can be overlooked, but we can pan them out. And then our final one is cooperative. This is just really all out managing our clients' expectations, stepping into their shoes, and seeing how they would use the form. It's really gathering from their perspective. Okay, when I see this, I expect this to happen, and reducing anything in between that can cause any further ambiguity. So we can apply these principles within Composer. I would love you here for the 5th C of design, but as we'll see, these can all be added into Composer. So the techniques or topics or insights that I'm gonna present with you guys today is the first one's going to be a multi or single step forms. This is just essentially either splitting up the form into parts or just having one single form layout. The next one's going to be pre-filling predictable data. That's pretty self-explanatory. We want to ensure that we're filling out as much of as the form as possible before the user even starts to work. Our third topic is a column layout structure. Between a single and multi or side by side, we have a few options there, and we can talk about what good times to use each one. But stick with the single column if possible. But we'll get back to that. And then as we come down here to our conditional logic, this is where a lot of the form intelligence comes into play. So, this is displaying only a question if a user has answered a previous question a certain way. So what we're really talking about here is how we can really create an intuitive form based on the decisions of any of our end users, and that can be accomplished in the composer. And then we'll round up here with data empowerment, and this is just going to be a brief snippet about the difference between hard-coded data and dynamic field entries when you're utilizing SharePoint. So these are really our topics today. I'm really excited to share these with you. As Tara was saying, please feel free to raise your hand, have a question or a comment. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so please feel free. So let's get started. So what we have here is multiple and single step forms. So what do we mean by that? What are we talking about here? So a single step, what that would mean is for really just basic, short, and simple forms. This could be a few fields. This could be just a simple fill out a questionnaire, a survey, and the single step really works great in that regard. But most of the time here, we could be working with SAP, we could be working with, most of the time with SAP, but and also marry just complex and complicated forms. So, how do we tackle that? What's the best way that we can boost our turnover, and how can we effectively create a form design where our end users don't want to pull their hair out at the end of it? We don't want to make this frustrating at all. We don't want to make this chaotic. We want to have smooth sailing ships, just so that we continue with our morale and boost our production. For any I recently came across this. It's almost, I think it's a philosophy term, but it's called the endowed progress effect, and it's really interesting. And it's where people feel that they have made progress towards a goal in small increments, are more committed towards achieving the end goal. So I found it fascinating. If we can reduce the amount of perceived work within, building smaller forms, or almost like a modular approach, then the end user is more likely to fill out the form in an efficient manner. So let's step out here of our presentation and let's take a look at what that looks like in Composer. So here we have, I just created this for our demo here today, and we see here we have 3 buttons. In fact, let me just, I open up the form here and we have 3 buttons. We have vendor info, address, and accounting, just some common areas we see within SAP for a vendor. Now, with the single step approach, we could add all these groups at once, but there most likely would be more, and this would cause just a lengthy scroll and almost like a daunting task. So how we could break it up is really just utilizing button format. So when I click that button there, I was shown a group. This is all the fields that are pertaining to. In fact, let me step back here. We have some other goodies to get to here. So as we see here, we have vendor information. We're annotating to them what our required fields are, and this is almost a mini goal, not a mini goal. Once we accomplish this vendor information, that's completed. And so if we select here a new main vendor, now we see that this disabled field is now enabled. So we'll return to this later on, but here we can now see this cascading drop-downs. And we disable the future one because the previous one has predicated data. So based on what they select here, there are various types of data for each one. So what we don't want to happen is the user ends up filling out a purchasing org by accident and then a company code and then have to refill out the purchasing org. That's just a waste of time, and it can be frustrating that they have to continually go back and forth. So a way we can do that is just by disabling the fields. And we see here now we fill out a few of these, and we have our vendor notes, and we are complete with this group. So we have a few options here, depending on what we would like to do. We can either click the vendor info back and hide and continue with address, or this can almost be a step generator. So once I'm done with vendor info, I can select address and start up on the address section. So this is really the idea for a multi-form area, multi-form layout. We can start to see here how just splitting up in parts can be more efficient. And then here's accounting as well, and so forth. If we would so let's take a look at this too. This would be the single layout approach, which isn't too bad, but we can also just accomplish more within a small amount of time. So let's hop back to our presentation. Okay, so we're back to our techniques. We just completed the first one, right? We talked a little bit about multi and single step forms and how splitting it up can be quicker to market and quicker to submission for our end users. Now we can let's go to our next one. We have pre-filling out predictable data. So when we're talking about pre-filling out data, I don't know if I can see a show of hands. Who here likes to fill out forms? I know we're virtual here, but if anyone can raise their, I don't like to know. It can be a tedious task.
No one's raising their hands. I don't think anyone likes it.
Okay. Well, I'm the only one here. I do, but okay. So we want to fill out no one really likes to fill out forms, right? But we can manage things within the form and fill out as much information as we can possibly. So how do we do that? We can utilize within Composer the current user control. We can utilize the query control, and we can utilize default values. These all are beneficial and should be utilized within all of our forms. And of course, the lesser the inputs, the faster the submission. We're going to come back into the demo here in a bit. I just wanted to continue to column layout structure. We're going to talk about these two topics, and then we'll go back into the demo and talk about them within Composer. So we have a few options for column layout structure, and many designers like to do a single column layout. If we have text and the field right underneath it, there's a study done in Basel, Switzerland, and they sent out 20 principles. And they said the most effective way in terms of logical mind for the mind to read on the screen, and they've done so many studies on this, is that if we create a single column with the label on top and then the field, it's much easier on our requester to fill out the form. It's one right after another. We're filling in data. If we were reading a book, it'd be nice left to right. But there are some use cases for side-by-side fields. We'll see that here in a bit. Searching comes to mind, as well as the one we'll see here in the demo in a bit. So let's hop back to our composer solution. So we see here, when I refresh this form, I'm just opening the form for the first time. We've already locked onto the user, their name, which it's not my name, but this is our current user, the email, today's date, and what the status is. These are all filled out before ahead of time. This is already saving time. Now, let's take a look at these within Composer. So we have our current user control. Utilize this. This is a staple for all solutions within Composer, I would say. For anyone new or fresh to this, we have our current date. We have email, full name, login. There are so many things we can set here. We could auto refresh if you'd like to. If we have a date, today's date, or a new task description, a new task name. A common practice we'll have is that we'll add two common or current user controls within. Where'd it go? Current user controls right here. So we'll add two. One is going to be auto refresh to false, which sets from the first instance of the form, and then we have an auto refresh to true, and this will update the relevant data based on the time. So strongly encourage this. You definitely use this, and you'll find that you'll be filling out less data than you need to. And then also we have default values. So let's take a look at this form here for new. Here within default values, if we go to the properties tab of our field and then to our default value, here to the formula page. Now we can enter here any type of data, any type of text. This is really JavaScript editor, but they also offer us here just a number of different tools. We can insert a field value, we can insert a field name, we can insert external data. So if we have any data connections, we can pull right from SharePoint, right from SQL. And then they also have built-in functions. So, keep in mind these things can also be used frequently and set as a default value. And then, of course, we have our variables, which these offer the same current name, display name, a lot of the current user control items, and as well as these three, XPath, row indices, row numbers. If you're working with, just a tip right here, if you're working with repeating tables and you want to pull just data from a specific row, keep in mind this rule field row indices. I'd really like to talk about it more, but some really cool things. We're working with this on the now, but we can talk about that in the future. But so all of these are at our disposal here, going back to our default value. So can't encourage this enough. If we know the data ahead of time, if we are aware of what it's going to be, what percent of the time, we must use these, and so that the user can continue to fill out the relevant data to them. And let's see here. Let's go back to our presentation. I'll slow down here a bit. I'm very excited about this today, so I may be Maybe going quick. Tara, are we doing okay in time? Am I going too short, too long here?
No, you're fine.
Okay, good. Okay. Oh, okay. What do we have going here? Let's see. It's asking me to sign in. Let's sign in. Okay, now PowerPoint's asking me to sign in. Let's sign in. Ay, 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 what is going on here? Oh, you know what it is? Silly me. Sorry about that, folks. I have a link set to this. Apologies. Okay, let's just click not on the demo box. Okay, let's go back here. Okay, so we have, let's see, we've talked about multiple single-step forms, how we can utilize a form dashboard with some buttons to really encourage just a single approach within a form, but there's many of them. We've talked about pre-filling out predictable data, encouraging as much filling in and auto-populating as we can so that our users can get in and get out and fill in all their required data efficiently and also as easy as possible. And then our column layout structure. Ooh, I didn't talk about column layout structure. Let's go back here real quick. So as we see here, I really want to show you this. This is really interesting. So this has request type, and then we have company code, and then we have purchasing org. So from the studies we found, this is the most effective way for the user to read and to enter data. I would highly recommend that unless we're inundated with data that we've got from SAP, and there are just a plethora of fields for a given group that you must use side by side, then use side by side. Sometimes it will make sense. The form search area, or as well as address. We see here, this is an alias field that will be filled out. These are common things that are natural to us now. We have our name field, we have our street address, we have our street address too if applicable, but city, state, and postal code, these are commonly grouped together. So this would not hinder our users' experience much. And as we see here, rather than have the end user fill out this information, we can auto-populate and fill in their requirement for them. This is just adding to our form intelligence. This is just another step that our end user does not have to take because we can just build this right into for them. But highly encourage the single column layout. It's overall it's going to be an easy experience for the end user. It's clean. We don't really see that which fields I need to update, which fields I need to. We have our cascading approach. It's very natural for the mind to see this working in progress. So I recommend it unless it makes sense, like an address or a search. So now just a quick tip here, guys. We talked about gathering data from SharePoint. We have request type and company code and purchasing org. And we're going to talk about this later, but we can also connect to a SharePoint list, and we can make this content manageable for our end users. So another pre-fill option as well. Okay, now we're there. Now we're back to it. Okay. So that's really column layout structure in a nutshell. Just a quick recap: single column layout, and then if multiple makes sense. Now we're going to go to my favorite one, the conditional logic. or you might have heard this be called branching logic. And here's where we really get into creating a interactive form for our end users and the experience. So, if we can dynamically change our fields in real time, depending on what the user answers to a specific question, we're already ahead of the game. We're already reducing the amount of fields that we have to see. We're reducing the amount of just visual cues that our end user has to evaluate and analyze at that time. And we also have, we're faster to market. We're just filling out all the essential fields. We're building in custom logic, and it's really some awesome stuff. So as you see here, just a couple blurbs about we increase our response rate. We can also make an impact on our form length and our user engagement. They're going to either feel okay, not much of a feedback, or there won't be any negative feedback, because it's just normal to them. It's natural. It's how their mind is working within the form. It's meeting their expectations before they even get to the point where they say, hey, why are these fields here? Why am I seeing these fields? They don't pertain to the requests. It's filling out the required fields for their requests. Now we can do that with Composer. Many of us have probably used Composer before, but they have a really easy to use rule builder, and it's always evolving, it's always improving. And my hat's off to them. They're in the labs. So let's go back there. So let's talk about conditional logic, because it's so fun. So back in our form, we have, where can we start? Well, right here, in case anyone might have, I'm surprised no one may have saw this or tipped this earlier, our buttons right here, this is conditional logic or branching logic. We're based on what a decision's made, we're showing or displaying or hiding fields from there. Now, how about let's see this live. So if I check this accounting box here, or this is a button. Yep, it's a button. So we can enter here payment terms. Well, you know what, guys? I've done it myself. This is not a very intuitive field here. I typed in net 30 when there was already known fields. So, what we could do here is we could create a SharePoint list and add in a few values, and then update our field to a drop-down and point it to our SharePoint list. So, unless anyone has any reservations, let's see how that can be done. Okay, so let's first. So right now, what we're going to do is that we're going to build a payment terms SharePoint list, and this coincides with our last topic. But let's add a quick app. Let's see this live, and we'll go here. We'll just create this as payment terms. Quick tip, always use underscore. It saves you space within your URL. Okay, so we have just an out-of-the-box list, right? So we're going to go into our list settings because we're going to be utilizing different columns other than title. So this title, though, is required out of the box, but we don't want it to be required. We just want it to be optional. So a little trick here is that we can go to our allow manage content types, and we go into our content type of item, and in here we find our title field, and we can set this to optional, and we go back and come back to our list that it's on, update this to not required, and we are primed and ready to start adding columns and data. So if we go here, we'll add a new item. Actually, it's not added yet. We're going to add a column. And we're going to create payment term label. So this is what we want our end user to see. However, there could be a different value for that label. So we're going to create one more here. We'll go payment term value. So we've created our list, and now we've created our columns. All we need to do now is add in the data. So let's go to new item. Let's just say it's net 30, and our value though is N030. Let's just add one more for good measure. We have net 60. Oh, that's not how you spell that. And N060. All right, so we've just started to create our payment terms, almost like a mini database, if you will. So let's go back to our form, and let's update this to point to that SharePoint list. So we're going to go here to our Properties tab. We'll go to our element type and select dropdown. As you can see, it populates with some hardcode data. And then we find within our properties, again, a range. So we'll come over here. We have enter manually, we have data connection, and we have repeating content. So if we select our repeating content, we see we don't have that connected yet, which is okay, because we can add that right here. So we go to our SharePoint list, we select our URL, and we find our payment terms. Okay, just as we expected here, they had this content type as well, but we find our payment term and label and payment term value. I like to uncheck these, title and content type. Although it's a minimal retrieval of data, it's still data being retrieved, and we're always looking for ways to improve our performance, even if it's the slightest. So if we're going to be retrieving these forms unopened, we just want to really narrow down what we want to bring back. So we can select there, and we have our label field and our value field. So what they see is this going to be this label field, but what's stored is going to be in this value field. Well, same field, but one's the display and one's the value. So now we've connected that, and let's just run a quick deployment. This will be fast. Okay, so let's close out of the other one, avoid any confusion, and let's open up our accounting tab. So we see payment terms is now an option, and we have our two options. So let's just select our net 30. We just updated this now, so now we've reduced the amount of error that we within our form. We've created the selected values that would already be entered, but now they just have a little bit more control around them. We have a better idea of what type of data is going to be coming in. And then here we're back to what we were here to do. Let's do some branching technology. So we select check, but okay, nothing popped up. We select wire, but okay, it popped up. But if we select ACH, we start to see some fields. And that's really the power behind that branching logic. If I selected check, I could be completed, ready to out the door, and save it around. But if I have ACH, now I can see that I also have other fields to enter. We have country of bank, which is a required field, name of bank, bank routing number, and account number. Another side by side, because this is natural to enter in a routing number and account number from left to right. So I've really, we've talked through many of these techniques and tips so far. We've seen branch shape technology within our form, how we can reduce our time, how we can make our user experience better. If we have one more topic I'd like to explore with you guys is, oh, that was it. Let's go back, previous. Is data empowerment. So our data empowerment is, it's very important. It's very important because rather than having hard-coded values, it's adding those fields and data into a SharePoint list or SQL to generate some form values. This really creates a ownership for content. So although the developers can develop and create those fun things we just talked about, really the owner of the content really now has true ownership within their solution. So the idea here is we, as developers, we're building the structure, we're building the framework, we're field testing, we're creating form intelligence, and we're still having the ability for our end users to enter in their content, and content, as we all know, can be malleable. It's going to be ever changing, ever evolving. There's going to be new content. It could be in an hour, it could be tomorrow, it could be next year. But to have that ability, it is to update that can really make an impact in many areas. As we saw in our previous form, we created that SharePoint list. We added that data connection in just a few minutes within Composer, and we saw all of the new data points already available in our first form open. So, although that may seem small, it is a tremendous advantage for your end users. That we would come back in if they have any updates to any functionality of sorts like that. So we really just did a 2-in-1 again there. We did best practices when creating a SharePoint list. We talked about using underscores to save on URL space. What SharePoint does is that it adds a %20 for each space. So using an underscore, updating the title field to non-required. You can keep it as required. It's just a bit more tedious to enter in something in there where there isn't any. It's not relevant data. And then also connecting that to our Composer solution and seeing those results in live. There was one thing I wanted to show you. Some people, for the aesthetics out there, we can also update the name of our list without updating the actual true value. So we talked about labels and values. If you're looking for a naming convention, which I highly recommend, stick with one, doesn't matter which one it is. That's another topic for another day. But for any type of naming conventions, we can just go here to list name, description, and navigation, and we can update this name here. Now, this just updates the label rather than the name of the list value. So that's where we recommend to create it as an underscore first and then update it back here in the list settings. you can see this payment terms here. So here we go. Where's the current slide? Although not in person and not from afar, I hope these have helped at least give some insight on some best practices, just having in some theory as well as some studies and some practical use and functionality as we did in Composer. I really hope these have helped you. I use these on a daily basis, and I really hope you enjoy our time here. We're going to open up the floor for discussion and questions now. Once again, if only we had more time. There's so much more to discuss, but
we have a question, Tim.
Yes.
Can you review how you did the cascading fields in the vendor info?
Absolutely. I was hoping someone would ask that. So I got a little bit ahead of myself earlier, where I wanted to show you guys this before, but to keep on topic, I just steamrolled through. But so what we have here is a company code and a purchasing org field, and this company code, its range, is tied to a company code's list, as well as this purchasing org is tied to the same list, but the only thing here is that we have a filter. So our filter is where our company code is equal to the company code on our form. So if we take a look at our list here, we see a set of data. The first one, company code A, has the option for company code or for purchasing org 1. Company code A also has an option for purchasing org 2. So we can filter these and see these, how they would appear within the list or within our drop-downs. If I select company code A, then I'll have the options of company code or purchasing orders 1 and 2. And so on and so forth. We have B here. We can select B, and we can get an idea of what options we'll have within our Composer solution by selecting these. I added in here some GOT in case there's some Game of Thrones fans, but we'll see that A, B, and C all have various selections. So now what's really important is that when we select a company code, this is still, this purchasing organization still has the data that was loaded into the form at the start. So what we need to do is add a rule here. And we have a few rules, right? So if company code is blank, we want to disable purchasing org because purchasing org, the values on there rely on what's determined on the company code. If company code is not blank, we want to re-enable that. And then we also want to reload our drop-down options. This is the key rule that you'll need to update the selected values for your company code, or for your purchasing org, excuse me. So that's really a review of it. What you'll basically need is a filter on your cascaded dropdown, and you'll need on your precursor you'll need the filter reload dropdown options. So we can see that live again here. Now we select alpha. We have 1 and 2. If we look back on our list and we filter by A, we should see 1 and 2 here. So that really tackles the cascading dropdown. If anyone show of hands, I could also show how we created this branching logic, if that would be helpful as well. or any further clarity on the cascading? I can't see if anyone's saying anything here.
It doesn't look like there's any more questions on the cascading, but I think going over the branching would be helpful.
Okay, yeah. So how we accomplish that, let's say from the group perspective, is we add a simple helper field for each group. So we have here a format vendor information, we have a format address information, and a format accounting information. Now so this is what really, I guess you could say, triggers or controls if it's going to be shown or hide. So if we look at the rules on those helper fields within that group, we can see here we want to, what are we trying to accomplish here, right? Let's just go to, let's keep it basic here. What do we want to accomplish? We want to show if we select this button, and we want to hide it if it sets this button. But we also want to hide it if it's a fresh form, if it's a new form. So on our helper field here, we're going to have if format vendor information, if this field is equal to show, which we set here on our vendor info field. When we click this button, we're going to set that field to show. And then if this field is equal to show, we're gonna show this group. Now, there isn't really a rhyme or reason. This could be any type of values, whichever values you prefer. But I just say keep it consistent. I just, for our demo's sake, decided show and hide. And then the same applies then for our hidden field. So this one's going to display when it's shown, and if we want to hide it, we're just going to set that field to hide. So we're going to set that value to what it is, and then we add all the triggering in our logic onto our helper field. Now you also probably noticed this top one. What's this rule here? This is a rule that will be, you'll have this on every one of these type of format fields that are helper fields, is that we want to hide this field no matter what, because this is just really helping us achieve our branching logic. It does not pertain to the actual filling out of the form, but it does pertain to our functionality, so we need it. It's really good. So we'll have just a condition here if it equals blank or if it's not blank. So it's always going to hide in those two circumstances. And really that will get you started. And then the other one where we had was on payment methods. So what we have here, and yep, this may seem like a big one, but we have our condition or our set. Our set is if payment methods is equal to ACH, which this was our first one. Then we want to show all of these fields. But we also want to keep in mind these fields are going to be required then. I mean, based on requirements. But we also want to ensure that these fields are also filled out because this could cause errors. Then we'll have to go into error handling and fixes. But if we require these, then this forces the user to fill out that field. So we utilize our set field to required. We utilize our show and hide, and then we also can set a field value. If they say, you know what, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be United States, then we can default this drop down to United States. Yes, there are many other countries, but I just added 3 here for now. But we can set it to a default value that it's most likely going to be. That's our predictable prefill. But they can always edit this, they can always update it. And then what we must ensure is that if they select another option, to reset our branching logic. So what we don't want to happen is they select ACH and then they're like, I don't want to do that, and they select wire. If we don't have this rule here to at the converse of it to balance it out, then these fields will still show and be required, which will cause things we don't want. We don't want errors like that. So all we do is really just reset the fields. We'll choose to hide them, to unrequire them. This is just like an else statement, and we'll set it back to blank. One thing I always have to remember, but always keep in mind, is that we always want this to run on blank as well, because blank is always, most of the time, the majority of the time, the first value when opening up a new form. I think that about covers it. I can go into depth more if anyone needs any further clarity, or if anyone would like to learn anything more or have a question about anything. What do we got, Tara?
It doesn't look like there's any more questions. I think we're kind of coming up to the end of our time.
Oh yes, geez, where did the time go?
Very informative.
Well, good. So I'm gonna pass it back over to Tara here. We're gonna finish up our slides, but if this was any at all helpful or beneficial, or if you'd like these type of presentations, or you want to hear anything more, please just visit our YouTube page. We're gonna have this up here very shortly. We have tons of other recordings, a lot of good information, a lot from all of our coworkers and developers here. We have just plenty of things. So go to the YouTube, like it, subscribe it, be a freaking customer. We'd love to see you there. And Tara's now going to tell you more about our upcoming events. Can't wait.
So we have some very fun events coming up. We're going to have a Lean Utopia process session in Dallas at Topgolf. Topgolf is a really fun place if you've never been there. They have food and drinks and obviously fun golfing. And then the Wisconsin WUG is coming up. It's going to be at the Radisson in Milwaukee. And then after that, I believe there will also be a Lean Utopia after party with food and drinks as well. In September, the annual WUG conference, it's the worldwide conference. It's going to be in Atlanta at the Lowe's Hotel on Monday and Tuesday, September 18th and 19th. And then in October, there's going to be another Ohio WUG, and it's going to be at the Gervasi Winery, which is really nice. It's modeled after an Italian winery. It's a little further south down near Canton. So hopefully we'll get a wider group of people, maybe people coming from Columbus as well as Cleveland and Toledo area. After that, there's going to be a Lean Utopia after party again with food and drinks. If you want to register for any of the upcoming events, you can see them at our website, clearprocesssolutions.com, and we really hope that you can make it to them. Okay, for those of you who are our customers or are not, if you don't have Solution Care, you should try it out. Right now you can get 5 hours free if you're a new customer. Just email solutioncare@clearprocesssolutions.com. It's a really great program that we have. We can help you implement Winshuttle, help you plan solutions, really any problems that you may be having. We have a help desk that can help you 24/7. So please email us about that if you would like to receive your 5 free hours. Okay. And just an overview of CPS and who we are. In 2015 and 2016, we were the CPS Winshuttle Partner of the Year. Along with the
Oh,
Solution Care, we offer more lean dashboards and solutions. We also are doing a lot more with ClickSense for Process BI. And if you want to learn more about us, go to our website, clearprocesssolutions.com. And that is the end of our slideshow. If you have any questions or if you want to check it out later, please go to our YouTube channel. And we will see you all in April for the next WEBtips. Thank you.
thank you.